Okay, the settings tab. Now this general settings tab, which we're looking at right here, is the site title and the tagline. When you installed WordPress, you'll remember entering these two values, and you remember I said you were able to edit them later. So if you need to change them, this is where you would change them. I wouldn't recommend changing them often once you publish your site live. You don't want to constantly update these things, as that will affect your search engine ranking. So you kind of want to settle on something early and don't change that. This is just the URL to your website. So pretty self-explanatory there. Basically your domain name or wherever WordPress is installed. If yours is in a subdirectory, it may look something like /blog if you installed it that way. Your email address, if you want to allow people to register accounts or not, you can toggle that off and on. The default user role, when someone registers, what do you default assign them to? Probably want to leave that to subscriber. The default time zone for your blog, how you want your dates to be formatted. So if I visit the front end of my website, I'm going to pull this up in a new tab here this time so we can see these tabs. You can see that this has a date of April 1st, 2014. That's the recording of this video. And if I jump back here and switch that to a different format, hit save changes, and I'll come over here and refresh this page. You can see now the date is formatted in a different format. So some handy features there for just how things display. Same thing, how does the time get displayed? When do you consider the start of a week? And et cetera, et cetera. All right, let's move down to the writing tab. Now the writing tab is basically a few settings that determine what the defaults are when you hit create new post. Okay, that's what that's referring to. So I'll go back to this. So it says, do you want to automatically convert things like this into emoticons or vice versa? So you can convert emoticons or not. Do you want WordPress to try to fix your HTML inside of your posts or not? What's the default category you want for your posts? What's the default post format? So, I mean, it's kind of silly, but if you get tired of, let's say almost all of your posts are video posts, and you get tired of clicking on video every single time to create a new post, well, you can come inside of the settings to the writing, make the default a video, hit save changes, and then when you create a new post, it's automatically set to video. So that's kind of what a few of these little settings do. And these settings you can probably safely ignore. Very few people post by email or using RCP and things like that. All right, next down, the reading tab. So this is basically how the front end of your website behaves. So what do you want your front page to show? Do I want it to show all of my latest posts, or do I want it to show a static page? So I'll show you the difference here. So I'm going to leave it set to my latest post and hit save changes. And what this means is that the content section of my home page, or this middle area, wait a second for this to refresh, is going to show me all of my posts kind of in chronological order, and then eventually it'll get numbers or something like that. Maybe, I think the default is 10, right? Yep, so it shows 10 posts at most on the front page. If I switch this to a static page, it lets me choose what page I want to show instead. So I'm going to show the sample page, hit save changes, come back here and refresh. And now you can see that my home page shows this static page and no longer an archive of all of my posts. And of course that static page is just this page set up right here, this sample page inside of the pages category. So that's kind of what those two settings will do. I'm going to switch this back to my latest posts and hit save changes. So you can determine how many posts you want to show on your static page or not. These last couple settings here have to do with what are known as RSS feeds, or real simple syndication. And an RSS feed is a feed which is basically a short digest of your blog. People can subscribe to your RSS feeds to get notifications of when you post new posts, which makes it so they don't have to go visit your blog every day to see if something is new. They'll get a notification as soon as you post something new. So you can set up how many items you want to show in your RSS feed. If you want to show just a summary of the article or the entire article itself, I'd probably suggest summary. Otherwise, some spiders may crawl your site and steal all of your content. If you have full text, so it's a little bit better, I think, to have summary. And then just make sure that you don't have that checked. Otherwise, search engines won't be able to visit your website. So that's what goes on inside of the reading tab. All right, couple more. We're getting close here. The discussions tab is next. These are all of the settings that have to do with comments. So how comments work, allowing or disallowing comments, moderation of comments. So the first couple sections here, the defaults are pretty good here. So allow attempts to notify any blogs of links from this article. Yes, I want to leave that on. Allow link notifications. Yes. Allow people to post comments on new articles. So if you don't want comments, you just uncheck that. If you do, you check it. And notice it says you can override this for individual articles. What do you want your people to require on a comment? They must fill out a name and email. That's usually what you want. Or if you want them to require login, you can check that. Anyway, these settings are fairly self-explanatory. I'm not going to read through each one of these. But basically, you can come in here and add the settings for your comments. Lastly, down here is the Gravatar section, which are global avatars. And this basically allows people to display photos of themselves when they post a comment automatically without having a account set up on your website. So the service that enables this is actually called gravatar.com. I believe the guys who made WordPress also kind of piloted this project here. So people can come up and sign up with Gravatar, and that basically allows them to have a profile image that follows them wherever they go on the blog. So I can post on anyone's blog across the world without creating an account, and my profile picture will pop up. So that's what this is kind of referring to. So you can have only allow PG Gravatars to filter out any offensive images that people may have had on their little profile pictures there. So anyway, that's what kind of avatars and Gravatars are. Let's move down here to the media section. Now the media section is how WordPress handles file uploads. So let's say I create a post and I'm doing a recipe and I've taken a few pictures of the recipe and I want to upload those as part of my post. Well, this basically determines how WordPress deals with those uploaded files. So WordPress automatically creates 3 versions of all of your files that you upload: a small thumbnail size, a medium size, and a large full size. And this is the sizes of each of those different thumbnails that it creates. So the defaults there are pretty fine, but you can modify the size, and WordPress will crop all of your images into your specific sizes. Lastly is permalinks, and this is probably one of the more confusing sections and possibly most important sections of WordPress as far as your search engine optimization goes. Now the permalinks handles how WordPress displays the web address, or what are known as URLs, of your website. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples to illustrate how these work. So by default, I'm going to click into this. I'm going to go back. Let me refresh this page so I can get my posts back up. And I'm going to come into this first post right here. So I'll select, this is my first post. This is the one I created earlier. And notice that my URL at the top says samplewebsite.com $P=4. And that's the address to get to this particular first post page. And that works great, but that's not super, I would say, user friendly. So you can use WordPress to change the URL structure. So maybe instead of having the P equals, which is the default, maybe I want to insert in the post title. So I'm going to select post name and hit save changes. And now when I come over here and refresh this, you can see that it says samplewebsite.com/this-is-my-first-post. So it inserted in the name of the post into the URL. And that's a little bit more human readable friendly and probably more search engine friendly as well. So the setting I usually recommend is just post name. I think that works really well for most uses. But if you have one of these, if you want to order by date, name, or numeric, or even some custom structure, maybe you want to do a category and then the post name or something like that, you can mess around with the custom structure as well. The most important thing here is that once you set your post permalink settings, do not change them. It will hurt your website if you change all of your permalinks to a specific one and then a year later switch them to a different type. So definitely figure out which one you want. I recommend post name, set it, and then do not do anything else after that point. So I'm going to switch mine back to the default and hit save changes. The reason why I got an error here, page not found, is because I don't have an htaccess file set up on my host, which is required for the permalinks, but yours should probably have that by default, so you shouldn't need to create that. If you do get any errors when you hit save changes, it does tell you a little bit down here what you need to do to get those pretty permalinks to work if it doesn't work automatically for you. So that's the permalink section of WordPress, and that kind of finishes off these settings.